Okay, geographers. Finishing up our first map here. So in the first video, we downloaded the data from Canvas, unzipped it, set up our map file, our project, whatever in ArcGIS, and we were just, ready to go. And now, in this video, let's make an actual map. Are you with me? Okay. So yeah, we set up this first underscore map project. We copied our S underscore America file geodatabase into that project folder in our documents section of the computer. And once we did that and we're looking at it through this catalog pane, I'm pretty sure this is what we did. It's been a little while since I did the first part of this because stuff's been going on. But if not, if I didn't fully show you this part in the video, in the catalog pane over here to the right, which should show up, I think, when you first open this up. If not, go to View and Catalog pane, and that'll pop it up right here. And you'll see probably something that looks like this. Hit this little arrow triangle thing for folders, open up first map, and you should have in here, if you copied this over and put it in the right spot, this S America geodatabase. Open that up, and we have these feature classes inside. So a feature class refers to a singular type of data, point, line, or polygon form of vector data that we can bring in to the map. In here, we have, I've given you a few different ones for our first map, but we're not going to use everything in its entirety, but there's just some stuff that you can also play around with and experiment with and hold on to for future map projects or whatever. But this first one, countries, pretty self explanatory. It's all the countries of the world. And you see, if you look at this little gray, silvery icon over here, it's supposed to be showing that it's a polygon feature class. That's what these shapes with the dots in it, I guess, to distinguish between the line and I don't know. Look, it just that means polygon. Okay, meaning they're closed shapes. So if I left click and hold and drag this over here, you might think a little bit. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Beautiful. It brings this polygon feature class in here. So all of these shapes right here, that's what we're dealing with. Another thing, before we get going too far along in this, we're going to get rid of this world topographic map and this world hillshade thing. This is this base map imagery stuff that Esri provides. It's kind of nice for just a quick reference if you need to zoom into a specific area or whatever. But the whole thing with a class like this and future classes you take is to get away from needing something like this, right? So let's right click on World Topographic Map, hit remove, right click on World Hillshade, hit remove. So we get all this pre-made stuff out of there. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be making our own map. So we don't want stuff that already has labels and specific, symbology choices and things along those lines. This is what we want. Okay, so polygon referring to an actual closed shape. And of course, with geography, it's not circles and squares and triangles, it's these irregular polygons that most of our, world countries and boundaries and all of that, that's what they are, right? They're not these perfect little shapes. So that's a polygon. We have some linear features, so it's just lines like this lat long cardo. Disputed boundaries refers to parts of the world where the what are seen as the national boundaries or political boundaries of a location. They're not as clear and obvious as it might seem. And certain sides say no, we own this part of land, and other places have other stuff. We're not going to worry about this with the map we're doing, but it's kind of interesting to look at, right? Zoom into Israel and the West Bank and Gaza and that area, and you'll see there's a lot going on in terms of where are these boundaries actually located. But that's for you to play with, not what we're doing. So these are lines, and then the little three dots, those are points, like this South America cities one that we have here. And we'll bring some of this other stuff in a moment. But for now, just click and drag this countries layer on here. And we want to zoom in to South America. The goal with our first map is to make a map of these South American countries. We'll put some cities in here, maybe throw in some rivers, maybe pop some lakes in. I don't know. We'll see what goes on. But just a nice, simple reference map. And the whole point here is just to get you familiar with the how to bring feature classes in, how to work with these different layers, how to change colors and turn on labels and create a layout and basic stuff like that. All right, so we're not doing anything too major, but this is a big deal. I don't know if I stressed this in the first video, but like your first map that you make in GIS, that's a big deal. I still remember mine. And luckily, I don't have a copy of it anywhere because it probably looked like absolute garbage. And that's fine because we're learning, right? And we hopefully learn and grow and make better stuff. But it was a simple, basic map, but it just felt so cool to bring some stuff in, change a few colors. And yeah, you can do things like this on your phone and just working with computers. It's not that impressive to do some of this stuff, but at the same time I was making decisions. I was controlling it, right? And that's what you're going to start doing. So embrace this. This is your first map. This is pretty sweet. Print it out when you're done, put it on the fridge, whatever you need to do. All right, enough about that. Let's get into South America. So what I want you to do to zoom in here to this continent is you're going to bring your cursor. So right now it's a little pointer finger. And just so you're aware, that pointer finger, what it is it if you click on anything, it brings up data connected to that shape. So I just clicked on Mexico, and we see in here all sorts of stuff about Mexico. And I'll get into from where that comes in a moment. But that's what this pointer finger is. It's just to get some information from stuff that's out here. What I can do, though, is I can hit Shift on my keyboard, and it changes that pointer finger to a nice little magnifying glass with a plus sign. Right? And then I can left click and hold and drag my mouse. All right, and you see that kind of moving dashed rectangle that I have right here. What it's going to do is wherever I draw this rectangle, it's going to zoom into that part of the world, right? This part of geographic space right here. So I'm going to make a nice little box, little outline around South America. It's not perfect. It's not the end of the world. But when I'm happy with it, I let go on the mouse and it zooms in. All right, so it's a way to be deliberate with this stuff. And it's a reason why it's really good to be using a mouse if you're on a laptop and you have that trackpad. You can do some stuff with that, but it can be a pain, right? Do yourself a favor. Invest in like a $10 mouse, whether wired or wireless or whatever. Use that. It's going to make life easier because you want to have one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the mouse, and you'll be able to do a lot of stuff. So we zoom in, and right off the bat, this is not perfect. I cut off some stuff in the north. This is okay in the south. I'm not totally thrilled. I got some options. Number one, what I do is I'm going to come back here to this map tab. So I'm over in view because I mentioned this whole catalog pane thing. I want to come over here to map. All right. And within here, I've got this explore thing here. Perfect. If you kind of hover over this, it tells you about some of these shortcuts that you can utilize here, right? So like you can see under quick shortcuts, it says shift equals zoom rectangle. That's what we just did. The little track wheel thing. Under 2, you can zoom, rotate, tilt in 3D stuff. So you can move things around in a variety of ways. So get a mouse, get familiar with this. It makes life easier. What I can also do is right here, we've got some more navigation stuff going on. I can do a fixed zoom in or a fixed zoom out. And so since I cut off a little bit of the north, I can do a fixed zoom out and it just pulls it out just a little bit from the center of the current screen. Right? And that looks pretty good. I mean, sure, I got some of West Africa over here. Don't necessarily need that, but I'm okay. For right now, this works. If I screw up, right, and I do something really ridiculous, let's say I'm doing my rectangle thing and I kind of get all flustered and I just do this and now I don't know where I am and I'm zoomed in too far. Not a problem. I got some options. Number one, I can hit this back arrow, previous extent. So I click that, takes me right back to where I just was. It's kind of like an undo for this zooming. Another thing I can do, if I really panic and really get confused, I can hit this globe thing here for full extent, and it takes you back out to the full extent of the map data that you have. In this case, it's the entire world. If I just had countries within South America, it would just zoom to South America, right? So it's the maximum extent of all the data you currently have loaded up in this map. All right, and I don't want to be there, so I can just hit that previous extent to get right back here in this spot. All right, so that's how we kind of move back and forth, can zoom in to things. There's some other ways to do this stuff. We're not going to, dwell on that for now, though, right? We're just going to use these basic things within the navigation deal. All right, now since I've zoomed into a spot, I've got some stuff in here, I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to always hit save whenever I think of it because this program can crash. It happens. It's a fact of doing GIS work. So the more often you're hitting save in the upper corner, or you can hit Control S, it's just good because chances are it's going to crash, and of course you're not going to be prepared for it. And so if you've been saving, great. Then it's not that big a deal. You go back in and you try it again and hope it works, or you figure out why it crashed or whatever. So save often. All right, we're zoomed in here. Okay, we're looking at these countries right here. Now, as I was showing, like we clicked on Mexico, let's get Peru. If you click on that with that pointer finger, it gives you this data right here. And what we're looking at is this is a link to the attribute table for the country's feature class. And so every feature class you bring in is going to have an attribute table. And some of these attribute tables are going to be simple and not that useful. Some, like this one, are going to have tons of good stuff in here. It says name, Peru. The long name, it's technically the Republic of Peru. I don't know if I get maybe local short name, known as Peru, and then I get some stuff in Espanol there, right? So different ways you can refer to the country, the capital city, the continent. It's in, a variety of stuff. Okay, so this is incredibly useful. And what this is, as I said, is this what we call the attribute table. We close that. To access the attribute table, you can right click over here in the contents pane on the left, go down to attribute table. And when we do this, it shows us all of these attributes, all the data for every single shape that's here on the screen, right? So we're zoomed into South America, but we see Afghanistan, Albania, and so on. We keep scrolling to get to here's Argentina. And you note that we have, there's one Argentina, right? There's one country, but we have four different fields in here, or entries, or records, however you want to think about it. Oh, hold on, there we go. So I can highlight those. This kind of turquoise blue, it shows it highlighted on the map here. That means I've selected it. It's kind of this active part within this one feature class. It's going to happen. You're going to accidentally select things, click on things. This blue is here. If you want to get rid of it, same thing. This map window, or this map, what is it, the ribbon? I'm trying to use proper terms. Up here in the selection deal, hit clear, it all goes away, right? So if you're making your final map and you've got this bright turquoise blue somewhere, you got something selected, Just go in here, hit clear, it'll go away. All right, and we'll deal with selection stuff later on. But for now, what this is showing is that we have 4 different polygons that make up Argentina. And I think with this one, if I got, yeah, here we go. So we've got primary land. That's the country itself, right? And then we have small island, very small island, medium island. So there's some islands off the coast. They're technically, Argentine islands. So they fit in there, but they're treated as separate polygons. And we'll see what that does in a little bit when it comes time to label some of this stuff. But we have these 4 different things, but that's where it's getting, when you click on here, that's what it's pulling from, right? And this is the primary one. So it's pulling from this record right there. Okay, so that's how it's all connected. Just want to make sure that's clear. That's a big deal with GIS, that we have these attribute tables. And we'll work with tables and we'll learn how to really extend them and do all sorts of cool stuff here, right? But that's where it is for now. So I'm going to clear this. I'm just going to X this out. It doesn't delete it. It just sets it aside. And that's something to remember. Unless you're actually editing, and to edit, you have to go in and say, hey, I want to edit. And then you start editing. And then when you go to close out of that, it's like, are you sure? You sure you want to do this? You want to save this? You're warned quite a bit, right? If you're editing. But only really when you're editing are you going to be able to destroy things or delete things, fully get rid of them. Hitting the X here and there, not a big deal at all. It just kind of removes it from what you're seeing, but it still exists, right? Let's say I have too many things. Maybe I put 2 of these in accidentally, right? I can right click here and just hit remove. It's not delete, just remove. Get it out of my map, right? I don't need to see 2 of these things. It still exists. We didn't delete it, but it's not there. All right. So don't panic if you've got to X something out or remove something or whatever. It's cool. It's cool, baby. We're good. All right. So we got this. We're zoomed in. We've got our countries. I was trying to impress you with my incredible geography knowledge where I said, like, let's click on Peru. And then I went to Peru, right? They're hard to say. I notice I'm not I'm terrible with all these little guys up here. I swap them back and forth. Brazil, Peru, Chile. We got some that are pretty easy to locate, but we don't have to have this all in our head. Let's put on some labels, right? Let's name these things so we can see what we're dealing with. Right click. When in doubt, right click on these things to see what you can do. Come down here to label. And I click that and beautiful. Turns on these labels, right? And I can figure out which one's French Guiana and Suriname and all those different ones up there. So I'm cool. I got that. But whew, this is rough. This is a rough looking map right now. We got a lot of labels just all over the place. They're not particularly attractive. There are a lot of repeats, which gets into that idea, like, this is that tiny island or very small island or whatever it was called. We got a few Argentina labels here. We don't need that, right? So I just went right click, went down to label. This is what it gave me. If I don't like what I see right off the bat, I come here, right click again, go down to the labeling properties. And when I select that, over here on the right, I'm going to have this label properties pane or whatever they call it that shows up. Now, right here, it's pulling from our attribute table to label this. Okay? It doesn't know inherently that this is Argentina. It knows that it needs to look at a specific field in the attribute table and put whatever it says in that field on the screen. Right? So this expression, it's got the $ feature dot name. It's kind of, and this used to be, I like how they did this before. This now looks kind of too scary, too kind of computer sciencey. But all this thing is, if I just got rid of this, it's just pulling from one of these things here. So I double click that, boom, it just puts it in and formats it how it needs to be. The nice thing with this is I could do the name and the capital city, or any of these other things here if I wanted to. So I can make these expressions. We can make more complex labels. We'll get to that at some point in some future, not so much this class, but later class, like the cartography class I teach. We get into some of that stuff, right? So you can learn how to mess with that. And also, if you're interested, Google it. There are little, forums and tutorials and that stuff out there. But for now, that's all this is doing. It's pulling from the attribute table. But also, it's a case of, great, that's the field I want, but I want it to look a little different, right? Have something else going on. If I click, oh, yeah, apply it, thank you. If I click on symbol, I can change the font and the color and stuff like that. And so one rule in here is that we never want to use Tahoma 10-point font. Why? Because it's the default font. And when we stick with the defaults, when we stick with the things that Esri gives us in here, we don't look like an actual professional, right? We look like we're just, whatever, we're clicking and we don't care. And we should be replaced by AI robots or whatever, right? No, we're professionals. We should have a voice that comes through our maps. Your map should be a little, representation of you and your aesthetic vision and your artistic qualities as well as your scientific talents. And that can sound cheesy, but you do this long enough, you get it. You get how it works. And you can recognize work that other people have done because it has a feel to it, right? An affect that just kind of gets you when you look at it. So get in the habit of changing all of these default settings, fonts, colors, whatever it might be. So in here, I don't care what you pick, just pick something that isn't Tahoma. And it's a case where, I've got a lot of things loaded up on my computer, some silly stuff. So yours will look different than mine, most likely. And as you scroll through, one thing to see, you're going to see once you've loaded this up on your computer, and this being ArcGIS Pro, you're going to have all these Esri fonts in here. And if you look at them, they're not letters, they're different icons, symbols, things like that, that are used for, placing little cool, point symbols on the map or whatever. So just ignore this stuff. It's just part of doing GIS. You're going to have a lot of this pre-loaded. But anything that doesn't have that Esri attached to it, it's a font. It's fair game. Pick something that's different. And what we want to do, don't do anything like, let's do this one here. Let's see what that looks like. This is too much. Okay, hard to read. It's this circus ornate. This could be cool for a title or something, some specific job, but not this, not for labeling countries. So don't pick one of these fancy display fonts. Pick something that's just nice, pleasant. And in this case, I'd say the rule of thumb, it's totally fine to break this rule later on. But for now, what I want you to do is follow along with the rule. And the idea is we use sans serif fonts for cultural things and serif fonts for natural things. And what I mean by this, let me pull up. Here, let's do this one because it's loaded and ready to go. And in fact, let me make this big just so we can see it on the screen. So a sans serif font means it's clean lines and it does not have little extra flourishes on there, right? So like Brazil, okay? The L is just a straight line. The lowercase I is that straight line with a simple little dot on top of it, right? So that's a sans serif, meaning without serifs. Serif refers to this one here. Let's go. We're going. There we go. These little flourishes. So again, this L, it's got this bottom piece right there. And I think there's specific names for where these serifs actually go and how they work. I can't remember any of that. But we've got this little bottom line here. There's a little kind of triangle guy there. Same thing with the I. The Z has some extra stuff going on there, right? That's a serif font. So This font would be great for rivers and oceans and stuff like that. But the name of countries, that's cultural. That's something that, and yeah, I get it. We named the oceans and we divided them and whatever. But the idea being that actual political boundaries, cultural, whereas natural features, we're gonna make that the serif font. So this one, let's go back. Let's go ahead and use this guy here. Okay, so that's a sans serif without serif font. Use that for the cultural stuff. We'll leave that there. We'll leave all this here for right now, but I want to get rid of all this other stuff that's going on. If I left click up here on position in the pane to the right, I've got tons of options, and we're not going to get into all this stuff. And you can look in and you can play with it and experiment and all of that. What I want to do is click on this third option, conflict resolution. And this first thing, remove duplicate labels. It says don't remove them, keep them. We don't want that. Remove all of them. And once we do that, we get rid of the very tiny islands of Argentina and all these other ones that repeat, right? So that's way better. Now, right now, it's also pretty big because I made a 36-point font or whatever. But still, I got rid of those extra things. It's a little easier to read already. What we can do, let's go over here. Actually, let's go back to this one, the placement. All right, we can do in here, we got some preset options. So regular is just kind of generic. Land parcel, it's kind of like, these aren't land parcels, but it's kind of the same idea. We're trying to put names within a certain boundary. Maybe you like the way that looks, maybe not. In fact, let's just go back here too. Let's drop this down. Let's do like 18 point, hit apply. Already looking way better. Okay, beautiful. I'm going to leave this as is for now. There are ways to fully change this stuff, mess with this stuff. We're not going to worry about it at the moment, though, right? I just want to see some labels. I want to see, deliberate non-Tahoma font selected. Use the sans serif for the cultural things, all of that. And because I've been doing stuff, I'm going to hit save, right? Just so it doesn't crash and I don't have to go back and do all this stuff again. All right, I'm going to pause here. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to do another video with bringing some other stuff in, changing colors, things like that. But in the interest of not having all this stuff crash and having little oopsies and all that, I'm going to stop here because this is a good point. And I'll be right back with yet another video to finish up your first map and make it look gorgeous. So see you in a bit.